you for allowing me to speak here tonight. Great privilege. So, as Josh said, that's the title of my talk. It's going to be a little bit interactive, so you guys get to ask me questions later, but I'm going to ask you a couple of questions along the way, so make it a bit more fun. Okay, so this was where we work, in the Click Lab, and that's a Denmark building. It's been renovated recently, it's beautiful. As you can tell, I'm not from Long Island. I'm actually from a little country next door to Ireland, or actually England, but it's called Wales, and it's from this village here. And if anybody can pronounce that, anybody want to go? There's a treat in it. Come on, one person, please, come on. Oh, you had to go, you're yours. So, it's called Roast Llanach Chrigo. Now, that is the most complicated thing I'll talk about tonight. So, no one has ever heard of that village, but you may have heard of this place called Wrexham, which is my hometown, because these two rich people bought our soccer club. And so now we're famous. Okay, so what do chemists do? Well, I'm sure you've all seen this Netflix, whatever it's on, show called Breaking Bad, right? You've all seen it?
Yeah.
That's pretty much it. That's what we do. So it makes my life easier. We make molecules. Well, we find ways to make molecules. We develop reactions. And then we purify, analyze, and characterize. And hopefully these molecules have function. In our lab, we like them to have biological function. Back in the day, chemists used to actually try the molecules on themselves, And you might recognize this kind of photograph, or painting, I should say, of a very famous event in history. Anyone recognize it?
LSD bike ride.
Yeah, who's that? You get a prize. It's a car freshener. There's no LSD in it, but if there is, enjoy your trip home. Okay. So this event was called Bicycle Day. It was the first recorded trip by Albert Hoffman in 1943. He synthesized LSD and decided to take some just to see what it would do, and then cycled home, and the rest is history. Okay, so you can't do science without having a great team. So I want to say thank you to this wonderful team of people I've assembled over the past 3 years at Courtney Harbour. Without them, I could do nothing. I really appreciate it, so thank you guys. Okay, whatever the biologists say, all life is molecular, okay? We have this central dogma of molecular biology where we start with DNA, goes to RNA, goes to protein. But don't forget, it all began with small molecules. So small molecules, therefore, are part of biology, and biology is part of chemistry. As we know, small molecules impact biology. We call it like drugs, they impact biological processes. We all know what drugs do. And here's another question. Does anyone recognize what this molecule is, by the way? I'll give you a tip. It's a stereo, yeah. Sometimes we have high levels, which is not good. We want to have a lower level. Don't eat too many burgers. Anybody? Right, I don't know who said that first, but somebody gets that, Josh. Give him. Okay, but chemistry started off, it had a bumpy ride from alchemy, people trying to make gold out of base metals, and for a long time, scientists believed that you couldn't create natural molecules from non-natural substrate, from materials like salts, etc. It's called vitalism. So that we believed that there was a vital force in nature that only natural things could create natural molecules. Until this chap came along in 1828, Frederick Wohler, and he decided to go away and take some non-living matter, as in salts, and turn it into urea, which is an extract of urine. Okay? These poor guys had to isolate urine, so imagine that job. But anyway, this molecule changed the world, so think about that tonight. Urine changed the world, okay? It really did. So it turned chemistry into an art where we thought, well, we can actually make anything. We're not restricted, it's not just the domain of living organisms, although we are living organisms, but the reagents we use are non-organic, let's say. Of course, people have been using medicines for centuries, and this is a wonderful molecule called quinine. I'm sure you've all heard of it, and it's isolated from the cinchona tree, which is from South America, and this bark was used from the 1600s onwards. The Jesuit priests were told about this bark from the local inhabitants there, and they found out that it could actually treat malaria, which is a game-changing drug at the time. This material, this bark, was worth more per weight than gold. Okay, this was the real first drug wars of that period. Of course, given its value, chemists thought, well, can we make it? Can we make it synthetically? Do we have to really get it from nature? And it took a long time, but after a while, about 1854, this chap here, Adolf Strecker, figured out the chemical formula. He didn't know the structure, but the formula. It was a big deal then. it's really difficult to determine what structures are. But this guy did it. And it took over 100 years, actually, from then to find out the structure. But this guy in England, this Henry Perkin, thought, I know the chemical formula now. If I mix X, Y, and Z with the right numbers, in a pot, I should be able to make quinine, right? I mean, it makes sense. Of course, it didn't work that way, It would have been great if it did. But what it did, it changed the world. This guy, you see that cloth he's holding? Anyone recognise the colour? It's not purple, it's a special colour. It's Morphine, actually. It's the colour of nobility. Only the posh royal family can afford it, because it's isolated from squids, sea squids, it's an industry in its own right. This guy did an experiment, found out, he bubbled these reagents together, and he found this black oil, and he was cleaning it up, and he found that his white cloth turned this colour Morphine. He thought, my goodness, it's a synthetic, it's an artificial form of Morphine. I'm going to make a lot of money, and he certainly did. Not only did he make a lot of money, he birthed the industry of the dye industry, and which came up, the antibiotic industry, the synthetic antibiotics actually were derived from this. So this guy changed the world too, and Morphine did. As a point of context here, this molecule, quinine, in its stereochemical form, and I'll talk about that in a minute, it was only in 2001 it was first made. So think about that, 400 years or so. So that's the real challenge. And now we can make it, but it's easier to isolate it. Going through the history, molecules like chloral hydrate, which is like a chloroform molecule, is used as a sedative. This is the first synthetic drug, as you could say. Then coming up to the late 19th century, the Bayer pharmaceutical company started manufacturing heroin, which is effectively morphine, and you react morphine with a form of vinegar, if you like, acetic anhydride, and then you can form heroin. This is over the counter at the time, if you can imagine that, right? But it's changed the world. It's a good drug for its real purpose, for pain, but of course it's been used for abused, I should say. Now, okay, another chap at the same company, Felix Hoffman, decided I can maybe use that same trick, and he thought, I'll go away and I'm going to take salicylic acid. Now, salicylic acid it's a derivative of the willow tree, which is known for its analgesic and anti-inflammatory properties, and he thought, if I do the same trick as my buddy and put acetic anhydride, I'll make a molecule maybe better than the parent molecule. So he made this compound called acetyl salicylic acid. This molecule changed the world. Anyone want to guess what this molecule is? Yeah, you got it. So there we are, he did it. And one of the original bottles of aspirin, 150 odd years later, we're still making it. That molecule is fantastic. It's one of the biggest selling drugs. It's a great drug. Thank you, Felix. Now, just moving on. Here's quinine again. You probably all recognise the structure now, right? Well, quinine was instrumental in solving a real fundamental problem that was awarded a very famous chemist the Nobel Prize in 2001. Molecules have hands, and if you want to, what is handedness? Well, hold out your left hand and try and superimpose your right hand. You can't do it. So although they look the same, your left and right hand actually aren't the same because they're non-superimposable, mirror images of one another. Molecules are the same. You can have left-handed and right-handed molecules. It's very important. I'm not going to get into it, but the problem was solved how to make these molecules by a guy called Barry Sharpless, who won the Nobel Prize, as I said. Great. This ultimately led to an idea called click chemistry, and the idea of click chemistry is this. It's the KISS principle. Keep it simple, sweetheart. Keep chemistry simple, and I'll get to that in a minute. It is a step towards the democratization of synthesis and hopefully drugs. We want drugs to be cheap. We don't want them to be expensive. We want all drugs to be like aspirin, dirt cheap, and available for everybody. Okay, time for a cocktail. This is Okay, I'm going to try. I'm going to make a gin and tonic. Also, there is history here. It's a medicinal drink. As you know, tonic water was developed by the British Army officers, the posh guys. Of course, nobody else got it, but the rich guys got it. When they were fighting malaria, they decided, well, if we drink this tonic water that contains quinine, we can, avoid getting malaria. And this was commercialised in the 1850s. Now, I like gin and tonics. Well, I don't really, but I'm going to make one anyway. So, here's the gin. How do we know which is the gin? How do we know which is the tonic? Well, I've got a blue light here. Well, see if there's a difference. This is your tonic. I think so. Right, what's causing that? It's the quinine. So quinine has a property called fluorescence. Now what is that? When you irradiate quinine, it absorbs energy in this UV region here. This is the electromagnetic spectrum. And for some reason, we won't get into it, loses a bit of energy and emits its light in the blue region. So when you shine this light on it, you actually get an emission that is called fluorescence in the blue region. So you can tell which is your quinine. So if you ever want to go to a pub and make sure you've got quinine, just take the backlight with you. So we're going to make a cocktail. There's the gin. There's the top, so that's the light. As you can see, very accurate. Mix it up. Just make sure it's the right stuff. Yeah, we're good. God, I hate that stuff. you enjoy. I don't like that, I prefer beer. Okay, so where are we? Okay, so that's I should say. This property is also in nature, it's called bioluminescence, and you have fireflies on Long Island. They're great, I love them. We don't have them in Wales, but I love it. So that is the same property, different reaction, but same principle. Okay, let's get on to what we kind of do now. That's the history, but we put it into context. Drug discovery is a long and winding road. It's expensive, and as you go deeper, it becomes more expensive. It's a headache, that's why drugs are expensive. Can chemists do anything to help make it cheaper? I think yes, the answer is. So there's from left to right, chemistry is the kind of middle component. But if we can improve organic synthesis and the ideas and develop drugs quicker, develop lead molecules quickly, identify function quickly, then hopefully we can make this process shorter. That's the idea, that's our job, okay? We can't do much about the other parts of this process. Drugs are expensive and people are turning to the black market or making their own drugs in some part of this world. Now that is a travesty, okay? We need to do something about it. This is a true story about this gentleman here making cisplatin, which is a very, very toxic molecule. He gave that molecule to his mother because she was suffering with cancer and couldn't afford treatment, okay? That puts things into context. Okay, what can we do about it? Well, the idea was, molecules are difficult to make. A lot of traditional medicinal chemistry was based upon natural products. They are complicated. But some smart people did this analysis and they figured that if we look at the number of potential drug molecules within a certain parameters, like molecular weight and other properties, don't worry about them. They did this, their job, they did the calculations. It turns out there's about 10 to the 63, and that's a number of molecules that have drug-like properties for whatever illness or for disease. Well, that's there's not even that much carbon in the universe, apparently. So, we're going to be blinking busy. There's a lot of molecules to make, okay? So it says if we're going to make molecules, let's focus on the things that are easy to make. That is the genius of Barry Sharpless again, okay? That's what got me into chemistry. I read this paper and I thought, that's the guy I want to work for. He got a second Nobel Prize for that. Because, not just for that, but for the chemistry that came from this. If you're going to make molecules, you've got to have good, fast and furious and make a lot of them with the right properties. You've got to have good chemistry, it makes sense. So this guy, he went along and thought, I've got to make a set of rules to identify the best kind of reactions. They're called click reactions. Here's the kind of parameters. I don't need to read them off. You don't really need to worry about it. Just know that they are fantastic reactions. They're perfect. It's like molecular Lego. It's just clunking things together. In my lab, we like to make things fast and furious, because I've got attention deficit disorder probably. I've got no patience. I just want to, let's make it, let's move on. I can't get bored quickly. So we try to make molecules as quickly as possible, 5 synthetic steps, and hopefully we'll have a functional molecule. That'd be dream, right? I don't want to do 50 synthetic steps and we end up with nothing. So we call this 5 to function. It's a little idea, and as you can see, is an illustration of that. Linear steps or convergent, it doesn't really matter. Ideally convergent, you get more complexity. So our approach to science at Cold Spring Harbor, we're inspired by nature, by natural systems. Nature's a treasure trove of active molecules, and a lot of these molecules are available on large scale, so we don't have to make them. Nature makes them for us. Then we can use some smart click chemistry, which I call clicks, to perhaps evolve these natural molecules unnaturally and look for new function. It's a good idea, because it actually does work. It's probably what's the principle of drug discovery historically, but we're just using, I'd say, better reactions now. And the bigger picture, we want to make medicines cheaper and available to all. So there's a driving force behind it. Well, I don't think I need to tell anybody how we are with antibiotics, right? It's all over the news most of the time, and it's getting worse. People are dying right now because our antibiotics are not working as well as they should, or as they used to work. About 35,000 deaths in the US alone from resistant infections, probably more than that now. About 3 million people a year are getting resistant bacterial infections. That's a huge amount of the population. That's more than the population of my country almost. Well, that's saying, that's a bad news, right? I mean, and if you look at this graph showing you the resistance over time, there's an increase in our best drugs, or our best classes of drugs. Resistance is going up. When you see a line going up like that, it's not the stock market, it's the opposite of the stock market. You don't want to run away from that, right? We want the opposite, okay? We don't want it to go up, we want to flatline it. I'll just show you, it's more personal too, we're all humans, not just scientists. This is a picture of my dad. He was in hospital in 2018. A day before, I thought he was gone. He had a bacterial infection. The medics said, no way, he's done. But thank God for chemistry, because he was given this molecule called vancomycin, which has been known for many years as a very popular, famous antibiotic. He couldn't get beta-lactams or penicillins because he's allergic to them. 2 days later, he's up in the cafe. He must be brave, he must be feeling well, because he's eating NHS food. That tells you something. Right. And here he is now, a few years later, drinking Wrexham lager, happy as this, chemistry, kick ass, We have a concept, we like this concept. If you can build complexity using chemistry, the more diverse structures you can make, the more opportunities you have for discovering function, okay? And inspired by antibiotics, we kind of went away and we decided to invent this concept called diversity clipping. That allows us to take, I didn't really say, but if you think about these electrical towers where you have multiple options to plug in devices, imagine that, you can plug in different electrical devices. You've got a lot of things that can run off a central core, like a hub, okay? But imagine that hub is an atom or a molecule, you get the same kind of diversity but in a structural sense. Well, we developed this reagent, and we did a lot of reactions from this single reagent, and we got a lot of different structures. You don't need to worry what they are, but you can tell that they all look rather different. When you've got different structures, you get different function. You can explore, it's great. These are all unprecedented. There's going to be some gold in here, we hope. Well, it turns out there was. Just by screening a component of what we call a library, we make a number of compounds, we call that a library. They can be big, they can be small. Well, we've got quite a lot of interesting activity with a certain family of our library. They all look the same, but there's slight differences. But effectively, this core was important. We managed to hit MRSA, with the first round. These are not optimized. This was just lucky. This is called screening. It's called discovery. This is not. We invented the chemistry. The chemistry allowed us to discover. Okay, and that's where we are. So we're looking to take this further at some point. Well, actually, Josh is working on this project. So that he's the antibiotic guy in our lab. Well, another molecule. You've already seen it. Vancomycin. It's a structural beast. It's one of those, it makes you go, woo, when you see it as a chemist, it's a tough molecule. But we can get it on ton scale, we can ferment it, we don't have to worry about making it, job done. It works by binding to the cell wall. As the cell wall is replicating, vancomycin docks to the cell wall, if you like, and it just gets in the way, and the cell can't make a strong cell wall, it just gets in the way and stops the bacterial cell from becoming strong and robust. But the bacteria are smart. When we throw something at them, they throw something back at us. And what the bacteria in this case did, they swapped one atom in this cell wall, a nitrogen to an oxygen, and that one atom exchange makes vancomycin effectively useless. Wow. We had an idea, well, a bit of a tangent, it's a big long story, I haven't got time to tell the whole story, but we thought molecules are generally structurally defined. They have movement, they can rotate their bonds, not like this, but something like this. They can stretch, they can do all sorts of weird things, right? But you don't change the structure, the connectivity. So, you can move your arm, but your arm's still your arm, okay? But we thought, well, what if we could change the structure of a molecule, like a Rubik's Cube, You take a Rubik's Cube, you're moving it around. If you think of the colours, every time you move it around, it gives a different kind of conformation, I think the word would be. But if you stick things to the surface of a Rubik's Cube, like this drug, let's put one here, and just keep rotating it, the relative positions of those drugs are going to be different. That means actually it's a different structure, has different connectivity in space. We tried this idea out. We didn't really have a hypothesis how it would work. We didn't know if it would work, but we know we can make it because click chemistry allows us to do that. We can make stuff. You can make stuff, you can test it, you can get results. Here we did. We made this complex beast. It really is wow, hats off to the guys who made that, I'll tell you. So we put a Rubik's Cube between two vancomycins. This is called a click connection. Without that click reaction, this would have been in trouble. The reviewer said this is the coolest and most complex natural product derivative he's ever seen, or he or she, I don't know. But anyway, so, wow, I think that was a compliment. I don't know. Anyway, the take-home message was, you make it, you can test it. And we did test it. We took vancomycin as a comparison, for comparison to control, and our shape-shifting lead. This is vancomycin intermediate resistant strain. Well, vancomycin's working okay, but ours works better. But look at the resistant strain here, the one that's resistant to vancomycin. That tells you, if you take, let's say you need a gram of vancomycin to treat a normal infection. This tells you need 256 grams. That's the difference between a thimble full, a glass full, you'd be eating it forever. It's just not practical. You'll die of the toxicology of the molecule. So that was good. This is not optimal. We need to improve upon this, and Josh and others are working hard to do that. It's a very interesting story. What really was nice about this, though, was this experiment. When you take your pathogen and expose it to serial passages of the drug, natural selection tells you that the bacteria is going to find a way to overcome the drug, right? I mean, that's how it works. That's what we call resistance development. When we did that experiment with vancomycin, yes, it did. The vancomycin became resistant pretty quick. Our molecule, did not. It was very resistant to the development of resistance. We don't exactly know why. Maybe we never will. It's a complicated, system. But hey, function is function. If it works, it works. If it's going to save lives, I don't care, right? We'll figure it out one day. Maybe somebody smarter than me will figure it out. But if it works, it works. We want to take it forward, and we want to give it to people who need it. So the take-home message, good chemistry allows us to create new molecules with unprecedented function. Right, make it, you can test it. We need to develop more click reactions. That's something my lab is doing. I haven't talked about that, but we are developing chemistry fundamentally, bottom up. They are the best reactions, thanks to Barry Sharpless. Help to democratize chemistry and science. Make things cheaper, make them for everybody. And on that note, I want to thank these people here again. That's last summer, we had a nice barbecue overlooking the Cold Spring Harbour. What a beautiful place to work, right? And thanks to all these really supportive foundations and just wonderful support. And thank you for listening, and happy to take questions. It's fortunate that I mentioned this guy, Barry Sharpless, in Click Chemistry. He's actually here tonight. So Barry, why don't you come up on stage? Barry, two-time Nobel laureate, only living person. I mean, what a trip. So feel free to ask as many questions as you like.